Welcome to Muslim Apologetics Australia. Let's listen to Douglas Murray being interviewed by Rita Panahi on Sky News regarding the pager attacks in Lebanon. Listen to their rhetoric. Now, before you listen to this, I want you to keep in mind that Douglas Murray is a Zionist and Rita Panahi is an Islamophobe and a Zionist sympathizer. Douglas Murray is also an Islamophobe. So these people want to kill Muslims wherever they are. They want the destruction of Islam and Muslims, okay? Listen to what they say regarding the pager attacks in Lebanon.
Before you go, I have to get your thoughts on Hezbollah's humiliation. It appears to be some of Mossad's most creative work, and predictably it's been attacked by many so-called progressives in the West who are calling the pager plot an act of terrorism. How do you see this? I would have thought it was a very targeted attack to try to minimise casualties amongst non-combatants.
Yeah, I mean, whoever did it, and we should add, I mean, it obviously looks like it was the Israelis, but I mean, Hezbollah have quite a lot of enemies, not least in the region. They've managed to destroy Lebanon since the 1980s. Once really.
So Douglas Murray, he tries to play it's probably not Israel, it's probably Hezbollah trying to attack the Lebanese. He literally lies, spews a lie. But then he actually says it was probably Israel behind it. Listen to the dishonesty, but look how they try and add some ambiguity. Maybe it's not Israel, but then he goes ahead and says it is Israel. Listen.
Thriving country. Lebanon has just suffered from this immiseration and violence particularly since Hezbollah has had the grip it now has. So they have a lot of enemies, but it looks like it was probably Israel that did it.
So it probably was Israel that did it.
And the people who claim that this is terrorism, I mean, I would just say, the definition of terrorism is a deliberate targeting of innocent civilians. This is exactly the opposite of that. This is the deliberate targeting of Hezbollah terrorists.
So is this really the deliberate targeting of Hezbollah? Is it really the opposite of targeting innocents? Let's have a look at the report. This is mentioned by NBC. It's your media, NBC. It says at least 12 people were killed, including an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old girl, an 11-year-old boy, and more than 2,700 people injured. And these are walkie-talkies. Any random people, farmers, anyone could use these walkie-talkies, right? But he says, no, this is opposite of targeting innocent civilians. This is a direct target of Hezbollah, as if the walkie-talkies only got delivered to soldiers, right?
In the most targeted, precise, and somewhat personal way imaginable. The people who say that this is indiscriminate seem not to have noticed that if you have a Hezbollah pager device or a Hezbollah walkie-talkie on you, the chances are you may well be a member of Hezbollah, and Hezbollah is a designated terrorist organization, and therefore you're just not innocent.
So imagine I made that argument. Imagine we in Australia, we got delivered pagers and walkie-talkies, and these pagers were shared amongst civilians. It was shared amongst the Australian Army. It was shared amongst Aussie farmers. It was shared amongst transport drivers who use walkie-talkies. Suppose the Australian Army, a few of their personnel got blown up, right? But at the same time, we had truck drivers, transport drivers that got blown up. We had children who had access to walkie-talkies got blown up. Is Douglas Murray going to use the same standard and say, Well, that's okay because ISIS or Al-Qaeda, they did target Australians, but their aim was to target the Australian military personnel. But, it is collateral damage if some transport drivers got killed, some children got killed, people who shot for these walkie-talkies exploded. That's just collateral damage. Or would this effing hypocrite say, oh no, ISIS or Al-Qaeda or an Islamic Jihad group, they committed an act of terror? Of course he would say this is an act of terror. And this is why these people are a disgrace. These people are a disgrace. What a hypocrite. And Rita Panahi, you're a hypocrite too. You're an absolute hypocrite yourself. And it's disgusting that you guys can justify terrorism. And you guys are used to justifying terrorism all the time. Whenever Israel kills men, women, children, shoot them, they're all they're all Hezbollah, right? They're all Hezbollah. That's fine. They're all terrorists. All the Muslims in Gaza, they're all terrorists, right? All of them are terrorists. So they all chant for Hamas, right? They all chant for Hamas. So they're all included, men, women, and children. So let's just be honest. Look, the hypocrisy.
And therefore, you're just not innocent. So I suppose Hezbollah will try to spin this with their useful idiots in the West, and these people are useful idiots at this point, or just enemies of the West. Because let's be frank about it. If you're the sort of person, as the people sort of howling about this on social media and on some of the newspapers in the last couple of days have been doing, if you're one of those people howling about this, you can guarantee that the same people who are howling about any collateral injuries in any targeted strike, for instance, in Gaza or southern Lebanon in the last year or in recent years, you can be guaranteed of that. And now they claim you also shouldn't do the most precise thing of all, which is making the pager devices of Hezbollah operatives explode. These guys should just come out and say it, which is they want Israel to be destroyed. They want Hezbollah and Hamas to win. They're on the side of the jihadists. Why don't these people have the guts to come out and say it? Because Israel can do nothing from including the most targeted operation without these people's...
Imagine having the most sophisticated weapons. Imagine having all the jets, the planes, the tanks, the drones, the Iron Domes. Imagine having all the sophisticated military weapon that you have, and then you resort to exploding the pages and the microphones of 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, kids in the attempt to coordinate an attack against Hezbollah. I mean, imagine this. People randomly in shopping centres, they're buying fruit and their pages are exploding. Imagine. Look at the tactics they resort to. And let's be honest, if any Muslim nation did this to the West, do you think that they're going to accept collateral damage? Do you think they're going to accept targeted attacks? No, they're not. They're going to say you're randomly killing any random servant of society.
Israel shouldn't have done it. These people who are making these complaints in the last few days are people who want Israel to lose. That's fine. That's their view.
Imagine trying to justify Israel's win by justifying an act of terrorism. And I'm telling you, they do this. This is in their DNA. These people dropped a Hiroshima bomb, a nuclear bomb on Hiroshima, wiping out 100,000 civilians. And they justified as collateral damage, the specific targeting. And you know what they say? In response, you know what they say? They say this is justified because a lot more people would have died if the war continued. If the nuclear weapon wasn't dropped on innocent civilians, then this war would have continued and a lot more people than 100,000 would have died. So they literally justify, it's in their DNA to justify killing and targeting civilians.
Want Israel to win. These people want Hezbollah to thrive. I don't. I want to see them gone. I want to see them stop making misery in Israel and making misery in Lebanon. But, there it is. It's a very clear divide. And just remember, of course, the munitions that Hezbollah uses are far from precise. And when they throw hundreds and hundreds of rockets, unguided missiles, and others into Israeli territory, it has consequences like killing a dozen Israeli Druze children whilst they're playing football. So I take the Israeli targeted strikes on actual Hezbollah terrorists over Hezbollah killing innocent children playing football any.
So did you notice what he did? He literally compared the military technique and advancement of Israel and tried to compare it to Hezbollah or try to compare it to Hamas, right? So basically what he's saying is, even if you want to claim that these pages aren't targeted towards Hezbollah and it just randomly does kill, unfortunately, any random person in public, well, that's okay because, Hezbollah and Hamas, they actually fire unguided missiles into Israel, which ultimately kills, as he says, school children at school playing football, or it might kill some random Israeli shopping at a mall. And so he compares the two together. So basically what he's doing is he's saying, look, we can make this comparison. We can make this comparison because Hamas and Hezbollah do it, therefore we can do it. So imagine this is his argument. This guy claims he's rational, and this is the argument he's using. He's basically saying, well, if Hezbollah and Hamas commit terrorism, well, so can Israel. This is, and these guys call themselves logical. It's actually worse that Israel, having all the technology in their hand, and despite having all the technology in their hand where they can differentiate between civilian and non-civilian, combatant and non-combatant, you choose to do an act of terror. What's worse? A group of guys that have got homemade rockets firing into Israel to defend their people, and they hit any random member of the public. What's worse? Is that worse? Or someone who has the technology to differentiate between non-combatant and combatant and still goes ahead and targets non-combatants as well? Who's worse? We know who's worse. It's Israel, because they have the capability and yet they ignore it and want to compare themselves with Hamas and commit acts of terrorism. Interesting, isn't it? That's why if I debate Douglas Murray, he wouldn't even stand a chance. Rita Panahi wouldn't ask him those questions. Do you know why Rita Panahi would not question him on these issues? Because she sides with Zionists. She's an apostate, an ex-Muslim, a murtad. She's a Zionist atheist that comes from Iran. So of course she's going to side with Douglas Murray.
Okay. And if other people can't see that distinction, they probably can't see anything, Reed.
We can see that distinction. The smart people can see it, but you think you can blind the masses. You think you can educate the masses with your apparent rationality. You're just an idiot. You're garbage, and you're a terrorist sympathizer. And you should be arrested. You should be arrested by the UN nations for actually advocating the act of terrorism and trying to justify its legitimacy. You hypocrite, murderer, killer.
Douglas Murray, thank you so much for your time.
Of course, Douglas Murray, thank you for your so much time, because I agree with your terrorism, because Rita Panahi is also an atheist terrorist.